I know how you feel, Jesse. I know how you think. I know the way you have been raised. I know the similarities. I know the challenges. So I realized that I'm the best person to help these women because I have been through that and that I have the tools to help them to get where they want to go. And
I've always been a happy and adventurous girl, and I love exploring the world and the people around me. However, being a girl with a background from the Middle East, I've always been confronted with what I'm allowed to do, how to behave, and how to look like, and what not to do. I've been through a lot of heartache, pain, tears, anger, and disappointment. However, all of this prepared me for an amazing life that I have now. Your story might differ from mine, but I know you are here because you feel you deserve the life you want as well. I know you're feeling the same feelings I used to feel. And I'm here to tell you, you can have it all. The only limit you have is yourself, your mind, your thoughts, and what you've been taught as a young girl. You're not here to settle for less. You're not here to fulfill other people's expectations of you. You're not here to feel miserable while making everyone else happy but you. Hey everyone, it's Jessie here. Long time no see. These words are not written by me, unfortunately, but they're written by my guest Babylonia. She's an Assyrian intercultural coach and speaker for women from the Middle East and beyond. Babylonia was born and raised in Germany, and she lives now in the Netherlands with her husband and 2 kids. They're a mixed family of multicultural backgrounds, such as Assyrian and Surinamese. During the COVID pandemic, she quit her corporate job in order to do what she felt was always meant to be, to work with women, helping them overcome their fears and traumas that are standing in the way to feel confident in expressing their most authentic self. But before we move forward to our interview, I'm so happy to tell you that Babylonia wants to give back to her community. She's giving away 3 one-hour online coaching sessions to the first 3 people reaching out to her. You can find her contact info in the description. And let me tell you, you don't want to miss out on this one. Babylonia, I'm so glad that we're finally able to do this interview. The last time I saw you was at that Speak Up workshop that you did. Since then, I can not stop thinking about our, conversations.
well, thank you so much for having me. This is really an honor for me to be on a Syrian podcast, but also to be able to share my story and hopefully inspire, 1 or 2 or even more. So thank you.
Babylonia, before we talk about your work as an intercultural coach, I would really like to talk about your upbringing. In that workshop, you refer a lot to your own struggles growing up between different cultures. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes, well, I was born and raised in Germany, in Augsburg, all the way in the south. I'm the oldest child of 4. I have a sister and 2 brothers, and I grew up in a very Assyrian-like household. So my father is still an Assyrian activist. So is my mother. My grandfather was one of the founders of the Assyrian Culture Club in Augsburg. So basically, my whole life was being an Assyrian and how important it is to nurture our culture and our language. So when I was 6 years old, I started dancing in folklore of the club. And that basically throughout my entire childhood and, being a young woman, I was also one of the members of the Assyrian Youth Association. So yeah, being an Assyrian was just, the most important thing in my life. And I really have fond memories when looking back how it was to be so close to that culture club, and it was like this big family of all Assyrian people sharing this mission, nurturing what we still have, but also seeing the importance to continue in, speaking our language and making sure that it will be passed down of further generations. But at the same time, I did struggle really as a young girl when I hit puberty. We moved from where I was born basically to a different neighborhood because my mom got pregnant again, and we had to move. So I was 12 years old, hit puberty, was the new girl in the class, and I think that was for me the first time that I really realized that I was struggling with who I am as an Assyrian girl, but who I in general, because there was this Assyrian part of me, all this great stuff about our culture and traditions, but also the expectation. And on the other hand, I had a lot of German friends, which were raised, I would say, not as strict as I was. So for me, it was really difficult in finding my own way and who I am and what I want to be and what decisions I want to take. And becoming older, I realized that I was different. I wasn't allowed to do many things. And I always had to be reminded that there were certain things I'm not allowed to do as a Syrian girl. I can't do certain things. I'm not allowed to, speak in a certain way. I need to behave. And I had to fit in. That was on the bottom line, the message that I got. That's what I did until a certain point, which also triggered, of course, a bit my rebellious side as well.
It's very interesting that you said that you had to fit in, because I felt similar growing up. Do you feel like, or would you agree that the way how we are raised, it's always like we're Assyrians and there are the others, and we're also like better like them. We're Christians and they're not like that, those believers. Like from the very beginning, there is a differentiation also. Who is more important? Who has it more figured out? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, and I do recognize a few things that you're saying. I always had the feeling that we as Assyrians, but also, like being the chosen, that
Exactly. Yeah.
we felt that there was this sense of feeling superior, which I always found really odd because I thought, well, we're all the same. It doesn't matter whether you're Assyrian, Italian, Greek, or American, German, I don't know.
Yeah.
And for me, there was no differentiation also between Christianity. I mean, whether you're Orthodox, I was raised Orthodox. So for me, it didn't make a difference whether you're Orthodox or Catholic or not. I mean, I just found it sometimes really strange that that was the way we saw ourselves.
Yeah.
Which I think is also a challenge to maybe welcome other people into our community, because we really have that sense of being superior. And surely we are the ones, Assyria is the cradle of civilization, but maybe in some aspects we take that to a level which I would say isn't healthy anymore. Let's put it this way.
You just mentioned that you, at a certain point, became rebellious. So, what did rebellious Babylonia do?
Well, I maybe not, really bad things, but I didn't take no as an answer. And I would like to say that I didn't do these things not listening and just doing what I thought was right for me because I just wanted to stir up the Assyrian household. But I always knew that there was more for me in this life. And I remember my sister telling me that she remembers that since I was a young girl, that I always kept saying, this can't be all. This is not why I'm here. And she always thought, that's a crazy thing to say. I mean, the way we grow up, our cousins got married when they were 18, and got their first child when they were 20. And I remember talking to my friends, being married at 18, have my first child at 20 and the second one at 22. That was the way I was raised. And I did say in that rebellious phase that this isn't actually what I want. And, I don't want to stick to all these rules because maybe I want more out of life. So I just didn't really listen to what I was told, and I did also fell in love with a guy who wasn't Assyrian when I was 17 years old, and I think that was um, really challenging for me as a young Assyrian girl, as well as for my parents.
May I add, just for the people, not knowing you and living outside of Germany, you lived in the south of Germany, which is
Yes,
already more conservative
yes.
than the north, I would say. And
Mhm.
then you live in Augsburg, which, like, how would you describe it? Is it like a big city, open-minded people, or
Well, I mean, Augsburg has, I think, approximately 300,000 citizens, so it's not big, but it's also not small. We have an own university, so it's already considered as a city. Um,
and how many Assyrians?
well, I remember when I was a young girl, we were approximately about 500 families divided in calling ourselves Assyrian and Aramean, so both of that. So I would say quite big. Our community was not as open as I would say the German community, but it was really nice. Yeah, growing up there. But it was also a bit challenging because, I mean, we were foreigners. It didn't matter whether we were born there or not. Our names and our looks just revealed we were not Germans. And I think that was also very, very often a challenge for us, but also for me in particular, in the sense of where do I even belong? Because I don't belong in Turkey, where my parents came from, but I also didn't really belong in Germany because I wasn't German. So I think that really also triggered my identity crisis that I had as a young woman.
Well, it didn't stop you from dating a Nogroyo, like a
True.
foreigner.
Yes. So that was my rebellious side. Well, yes, that's true. My first boyfriend, or my first love ever, was a Croatian guy. He was in my class, and I did fell in love with him. Yeah, I was really on top of the world. I was so in love, and it was the first time that I really felt someone saw me for who I really was, and I didn't need to pretend to be someone else. Yes, I did knew that my parents would not necessarily agree. I was still in school. I was 17 years old. I haven't graduated yet, and I mean, I have to say that I kept it quiet because I knew it wouldn't be accepted. My mom did find out eventually. She found a love letter under my pillow. Um,
Seriously, Babylonia, that was not smart at all.
no, it wasn't. And don't even remember why I put it there. And normally my mom never made my bed, but that certain day she did it. And that's when she found a letter of 3 pages. And you can imagine when I got home, I have been lectured what the hell I was doing, and yeah, that I was playing with the fire. Not even was I a young girl, I was still going to school. There it's not none of my business to fall in love. I even don't know what love means as a young girl. And of course, I mean, he wasn't Assyrian, so my parents, of course, didn't really appreciate that I was with someone. And yeah, well, they wanted me to break up, to cut that off. And I think that's the first response of parents, when they're overwhelmed with a certain situation or just don't know how to handle that. That was it. You have to break it up. You're still a young girl. You still have to go to school, and there are more important things. But rebellious Babylonia did not break up with him, so I did stay with him, which was quite a challenge because he knew Assyrians. He knew how our culture was and how a young girl was seen when you were, already with someone who's not Assyrian. And I think I don't need to, yeah, tell you how, the women were called back then and maybe still. However, I did stay with him and we were madly in love. And I really thought that he would be the one. I really thought I would marry him. And we even talked about getting married and having children. Unfortunately, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it had other plans for me because 9 months into our relationship, after my parents found out and all of that, he decided to commit suicide. That was by far the darkest period of my life. Yeah.
I can not imagine how that feels. Like you were 16, 17 years old when that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, that's a lot of trauma for a girl to handle, I guess.
Yeah, so it was really hard for me to go through that and to accept that. And I mean, while I was in this relationship, there were red flags that I didn't see, obviously, because you're in love and you're young and you fantasize about life. But now, 20 years later, when I look back, I know that he was struggling, with mental health. He was having depressions. So that was what has led basically to his decision to step out of life. But nevertheless, it did create such a void in my heart and in my soul because I was thinking, we were so in love. He loved me and I loved him. Why didn't we had a happy ending? And you did mention already trauma. It really was such a traumatic experience, but also what I kept in myself all the time was, why was my love not enough to save him? Not knowing that I would never be able to save him because he was just not in a good place mentally, and he would have done that eventually anyway. But when you're such a young girl, you just wonder, how can this happen? And I mean, that's something you see in the news or in movies, but never thought it would happen to you. So it was really, 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 really hard for me. And that was for me also really the turning point in my life. Yeah.
How did you navigate through life after that? Like mentally, physically?
I have to say, I don't really remember the first 2 weeks. I do recall how it was when I got the news, when I told it my sister and the closest friends, and also planning the funeral and stuff or being part of it. So I do remember that, but there are really some occasions I don't remember. I have a total memory block, I would say. And I think the most important person who really helped me back then was my cousin. She's a bit older than me, and she is a social worker. She used to be a social worker, and she found out that happened because it was Easter, and I didn't went with my parents to my uncle, and that my cousin found it odd because she was like, Babylonia always comes, and my sister said, yeah, she's not feeling well. So she took my sister aside and said, what happened? I don't believe that. And that's basically when my cousin jumped in the car, came to see me, and really picked me up from the floor and guiding me through therapy. Not only did I had to tell my parents that I was still with this boy, but also telling them that I need therapy, that I need someone to talk to. And my aunt and my cousin really, came to the talk with my parents. I mean, I was heartbroken and I was just so hurt and not in a good place mentally as well, that they said, okay, she needs help. But 20 years ago, going through a therapist was already a big thing. And I mean, in an immigrant family, and I don't think I need to tell you that. And I think a lot of people can relate. That was just something you didn't do. It was more like, suck it up. It happened. Um, but we're not going to send our daughter to a psychologist because she isn't crazy. So that was also the struggle for my parents, because they saw me heartbroken, sad, and they wanted to help, but they couldn't because, from the way they have been brought up, this was just something you wouldn't do. And there was always this, okay, well, if people find out she's going to a therapist, they will think she's crazy. And it was really for everyone in my family, also for my siblings, a really hard time for them as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, mental health is not a big topic in our community. I think it is getting better, much better than obviously 10, 20 years ago. But yeah, I can only imagine like you would feel like something is wrong with you and that you're alone in this. So I'm really glad that you had that cousin.
Yeah, if she wouldn't be around, I honestly don't know whether I would be here in this moment with you, because she really
Wow.
saw that it was essential for me to go. And I mean, like you said, she works in the field, she has seen these things before, and the logical thing to do is then really sending someone to therapy to work on that trauma, to heal that trauma. And that's what I did. I was then in therapy for 3 years. And even though my mother had really struggled with, accepting that that happened to me and that I needed help, she really helped me finding a therapist, which was really odd to say now, but that helped me bond with her in that really strange and hurtful situation. So I was really happy that she did help me with that, and they did support me to go at the end, because they knew this is what I needed, regardless of what they thought going through a therapist is like. So, yeah.
Looking at your last name, you are married now. So let's talk about the love of your life now.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my husband, his name is Gerald, and I met him on my first holiday ever with my sister and my best friends. I mean, I was 23 years old. I just graduated from my study. I finished that, and we went on holiday together. And that's where I met him 14 years ago. And
And he has
yeah,
a very interesting last name, I must say, which I don't know how to pronounce.
he
So I'm not
does.
going to pronounce it. You're going to pronounce it, please.
Yeah, well, there's also a difference. I mean, the Dutch people say basically Bhugwansing, so the way it's written, but it's an Indian name. But the real pronunciation is actually Bhugwansing. So
And
Babylonia Bhugwansing, just to make it really long.
but he's not Indian.
Well, I mean, his roots are Indian. However, his great grandparents came from India and moved to Suriname. So basically, his great grandparents came as guest worker to Suriname, and Suriname is the country next to Brazil, so in South America, as guest workers to build up that country. Suriname used to be a Dutch colony, so that's when his grandparents, great grandparents, grandparents were born in Suriname, and his parents were they born as well. However, his parents came 44 years ago from Suriname to the Netherlands, because again, Suriname was a Dutch colony, so it was easier to make that switch than to Europe. And my husband was born and raised here.
If you didn't say it is next to Brazil, I wouldn't even know where it's located. So, what kind of religion do they have? Are there Christians because of the Dutch, or are there Hindu?
Well, Suriname is not just a country which its residents being Indian, but it's a mix of lots of ethnicities, because there are also Africans, there are Chinese people, also Dutch people, obviously. I also read somewhere Lebanese. So it's basically, it used to be a very poor country, and the Dutch, brought all these people basically together to build up that country. So the majority, I would say, are most probably Christian and Hindus. Also, a part of that being Muslim. And so, yeah, it's a really mixed country, I would say, because of the different ethnicities. And yeah, the music is really nice because it's more the Caribbean rhythm. So yeah, it's really interesting to read into that story. And I mean, of course, it's not always. There's also obviously a not so nice part of that story, but for me, it was also the first time that I met someone from Suriname, because I also didn't know where it was located until he told me where it was. So when I got home, I had to first Google it, where it was, and yeah, what this country basically looked like. So yeah,
So when did you decide that he's the love of your life?
I saw him, and there was this instant voice, saying, "This is the guy you will marry." And I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" So I went to my best friend and I said, "Do you see that guy?" And she was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 nice guy." And I said, "Yeah, this is the one I'm going to marry." And she was like, "Are you sick or are you drunk? Like, what are you talking about?" And I just remember telling her that I don't know what it is. I have no idea where this is coming from, but there is this intense feeling in my body, in my chest, and that voice that keeps telling me that this is the man I will marry. And mind you, that I knew already back then that if this is going to happen, I'm going to play with the fire, obviously, because yeah, not only is my husband not an Assyrian, it's a totally different ethnicity. His skin color is, of course, also different, but also he isn't Christian, or wasn't born and raised as a Christian. So yeah.
when you when you just told me that story, I don't know, I feel like I remember that from some Bollywood movie. Like the plot sounds very similar. Like, is that really your life story? Or are you just
Yes, no, I'm not making it up. I mean, you can ask my sister. She was part of that day too, and of that whole love story. But yeah, like you said, maybe that's my own Bollywood story.
but
Yeah.
just like in the movies when, the family comes in, the drama happens. So what
Yes.
happened? What happened in your plot?
Well, like you said, when the family is involved, the drama starts. So it was indeed a drama. So when I had the guts to tell my parents that I met someone who isn't Assyrian and also not Christian, I think the world collapsed for my parents, especially for my mother, because, my husband isn't that perfect son-in-law that Assyrian parents maybe, envision for you. So it was really, really difficult for my mother to accept that or to deal with that, and it did create a lot of struggle for me, for my family, and for my parents. And of course, it did also do something to our bond that we had, because that was not something they saw coming. But also that question, which I think a lot of Assyrian parents ask themselves: why our daughter? What have we done? You know, it had nothing to do with anything of that. I just fell in love with someone um, who just doesn't fit into that picture of, that Assyrian son-in-law that they had. So yeah, it was really, really hard and challenging. And in the beginning, they couldn't really accept it. So it took really a while until, yeah, not only my parents, but also the rest of the family, obviously, got used to that thought, because, yeah, like I said, I'm the daughter of an Assyrian activist, and that's just something you don't do.
Did that change the way how you approach your own culture? Like, did you, because of the people excluding him, did you had any hard feelings towards your own culture? And because you loved that, obviously, growing up, right?
Yes, definitely. I had really hard feelings, because I always thought we're so welcoming. At least that was the way I been brought up. We were really extrovert. We did a lot of stuff in the culture club. We were really integrated in Germany. So I really thought that, okay, when the first shock is past and everything settles down a bit, then that wouldn't be a big thing. And maybe I was a bit naive also, but I just really was convinced that after everything, when the first shock is over, and everyone sort of, got used to that, then it would be fine. But it wasn't, because then, my family had to hear certain things. People were talking about me. not in a really nice way. Like, how could I do something like that to my parents? I know that my parents really had a hard time also listening to all of that, and this throwing it in my face towards my parents. So it was really hard, and I did exclude myself as well here in the Netherlands, that I just didn't want to be in contact with anyone from my culture. I just really excluded myself on purpose because of all that drama, and I just didn't want any more drama of that. I just wanted to live my life, be with him, and just do my thing. So for the first couple of years, I haven't met any Assyrian person here in the Netherlands, or at least not in Rotterdam. Um, And yeah, there were moments where I missed this because I mean, it's part of me, it's who I am. I love my culture, I love my language. I know I love everything that Assyrians stand for. But on the other hand, they gave me the feeling that I wasn't part of that anymore because I chose to marry someone outside, of my culture, ethnicity, etc.
I think it's a very interesting thing that you just said because initially you love your culture, you're practicing it, you're speaking the language, and etc. etc. And then you do something that makes your community feel like, okay, she's not part of us anymore, and we're gonna behave like that. We're gonna make her feel that she's doing something wrong, and we're gonna exclude her. And like the fear that they have is, because she's marrying outside of the culture, I don't know, gets reduced, gets lost, etc. But actually, by excluding you, they pushing for this, and you automatically exclude yourself because you
Yeah.
don't feel welcome anymore. So it backfires.
Indeed, so it's such a controversial thing because instead of saying, okay, you know what, she chose that, she fell in love with that person, and not just me. I mean, there are plenty other women who marry outside of our culture. But instead of saying, okay, you know what, it is what it is, and we welcome her and her husband as well, or boyfriend, and so that they can still nurture being an Assyrian, speaking the language and such. And that wasn't in my case, because he wasn't welcome at first. It gave me the feeling that I wasn't welcomed either. So I did take a step back and said, you know what, I don't want to even hear about it or see about it. I also stopped listening to Assyrian music. I mean, I still kept speaking the language with my parents, obviously, but I deliberately chose not to be part of that community or nation anymore. And I always kept saying to my parents, these are two totally different things. I can't fall in love with someone who's not Assyrian and still being Assyrian. It doesn't change a thing. I'm still who I am. I'm still an
Yeah.
Assyrian woman, but my heart belongs to someone who's not. So what's the big deal? And I think that this is still something that our community um, needs to learn and accept, that these are two totally different things. And yeah.
We actually had an episode about this where we interviewed the people that are from outside of the culture and got married to an Assyrian. And what stood out to me was that collectively they said that just because you're marrying outside of your culture, that doesn't mean that you have to give up your culture. Like, you can still practice the things and keep them alive. And
Yes.
you should see it more like a bonus rather you're giving something up.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
would you say that you practice that with your husband? Like, how do you raise your children?
Yeah, I have two boys. They are 6 and 3 years old, and they get the best out of both cultures. I would even say religions as well. For me, it was really important that my children will be raised in Assyrian. So that was something that I really made clear, despite of, how our love story began when my parents and the community found out, and me, taking a step back from being part of the Assyrian community. It was still without a question that I would speak Assyrian to my children, which I also did, and they do understand it when I'm going back to Germany to my parents. they talk, with my parents, they learn it. So that was something that was, yeah, just the most normal thing to do, even though I didn't want to be in contact with anyone. So, but that fire, that was a part of me saying, okay, this is still who I am, and my children are part of the Assyrian community as well. So they do speak Assyrian, they do understand it, and we really take both out of we take the best out of both cultures. So we also, practice obviously the Christian holidays as well as the Hindu. So the religion that my parents-in-law practice is Hinduism. So we do both because I see it as a bonus, as you said. I see it as something great, a different culture. And I mean, also, I was also really open to get to know the culture of my husband, especially that Indian part, but also the Surinamese. So he has basically two bonus cultures, which is great. And I have to say, it really goes well. I mean, our children are free to decide what fits best for them, and they're really excited to also learn both of that. And I mean, they're the older one is now in an age where he realizes, okay, there are certain differences. So my mom and the family of my mother, they celebrate Easter and Christmas really big. The in-laws not so much, but then there's Diwali, which comes up now by the end of October, which is the Feast of Lights. So yeah, and I'm just really, really proud that my children can experience that, and I just see it as such a great addition to being a human being, but also being open for different cultures and different traditions. And yeah, not only language wise, but also really tradition wise. I think it's just an amazing thing to have.
So your children feel like part of the Assyrian community?
Well, I think they're still pretty small. I don't think they realize yet what it means. But now the oldest one is asking, like, where do I come from? Because that's also a subject at school. So I'm trying to explain to him, your mom is Assyrian. And then he's like, yeah, but you're from Germany. And I'm like, yeah, I was born and raised there. So now he has that interest. But I always made it clear, you're Assyrian. And this is just the way he handles it, and he knows it, and this will never change. Of course, I want them to be also part of that. So I also want to actively participate in building a network here where they do also have contact to other Assyrian children, but maybe also taking them to Hagel, to a Syrian party where they get used to the music, but also to, dancing. So that's really something that I want to do, and I also see it as my duty to do so.
I'm just imagining a half Surinamese, half Assyrian guy dancing baguette. Like, wow.
Yeah.
That's I feel what you're saying. Like, it's really a bonus. It's such a great thing. And in another interview that we had, somebody said, if we are not willing to open our gates and accept the people, why would other like communities or ethnicities care about us? So in by opening and making feel people more welcome, we're getting also more allies for our
Yeah,
cause.
yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm very glad now that everything worked well for your family. You mentioned that you live now in Rotterdam, which is in the Netherlands. What did you work there? Like, did you right away become a coach?
No, so I came to the Netherlands 12 years ago and started immediately in corporate life because that's what my study was. So I started working for the big giants corporate like LyondellBasell, and the last 9 years then for Shell. So I started there, did different jobs, made a career basically, and yeah, I mean, I was happy. I had good jobs. It really paid good money, but there was always, since I've been a young girl, especially after my first boyfriend committed suicide, there was this urge to do something with people. And I remember keep saying to my family that I want to do something more in the social field. This is something I can do. I can do work well with people. But you know what? There were jobs like not paying well enough. And I mean, also in our culture, there are certain professions that you should aspire, and that's what you should do. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do the traditional way. So I worked for corporate, like I said, and after having my first son, that urge to do something else just became greater and greater. And it was like a volcano, sometimes it just popped up, and others it was just really quiet. And there were really phases, but I kept noticing that I was more and more unhappy. And I'm sure that my first son really triggered that. What is it that you want to get out of life? Is this how you want to spend your life? I mean, if you're looking back, is this what you want to look back? And I was still searching in, okay, what is it that I really want? And I mean, we bought a house and we had a boy, and it wasn't as easy to just change, which I know now is an excuse, obviously, because there's never the right time to do something. However, my second son was born in July 2019. And then, of course, by December, I had to go back to work because my parental leave was over. And I was really, really unhappy. We also had some health issues with our youngest after he was born immediately. So, there was a lot going on, and being mother of two and working and stuff. And I just remembered I'm so unhappy with myself, and not necessarily with my life, but I just felt lost in who am I as a person, not necessarily as a wife or a mother, but who is Babylonia? And I just couldn't really answer that question, because if I took the labels off that we all have, who was I? And I really fell into a black hole of not knowing what I want and who I am. And I was just sick of life, how it was. And that question that I also, or that thing that I kept saying to my sister when I was a young girl, this can't be it. I'm not in this world to just live a life like this, in this system. And then, of course, the pandemic came. So it was really hard, but at the same time, for me, that was the moment where I said, okay, and you know what? No more. I'm done with this shit. I need to change something. I'm just fed up with this shit. And yeah, I'm not going to do it anymore. So that's basically when I started my own healing
So
2.5 years ago.
the pandemic really put things in perspective and
Yes.
was the tip of the iceberg, you would say?
Yes. Yeah, and I think I realized that it doesn't matter how crazy the outside is. The only thing that matters is the inside, how I perceive myself, how I see myself. And that was then the reason where I said, okay, you know what, I'm just going to start. And I just looked back a few days ago when I booked my first program, and it was actually April 2nd. So just, 2 weeks after the pandemic hit. And for me, that was the best thing I've ever done, investing in myself and in my own healing. And then this whole thing started of, okay, I want to do something else. And I decided to become a children's coach. So I'm a certified children's coach. And by May of 2020, we heard from the board of Shell, that Corona isn't going anywhere. It's going to stay around. And of course, the jobs are threatened, and that we had the chance to get a buyout. And then I thought, okay, you know what? This is my chance.
So just to understand, you were still working at Shell while you did those workshops in order to learn the other job.
Yeah, well, I was still working for Shell. I just got a promotion in February 2020, so I had a different job. Worked 3 days because of the two children, and was doing a course next to it. It was privately, so basically, I was just working on my own healing. And then by April, I decided, okay, I'm going to do something completely different. I want to become a children's coach. this is the profession I want to do next to, still working for Shell. And once my business is up and running, I'm going to quit Shell. That was the plan. Just didn't know how I'm going to do
Wow.
that because financially, obviously, I mean, we had just two children, we have a mortgage and stuff. But then by the end of May, this chance from Shell came up that, if you want voluntarily to leave Shell, this is the chance that you have. You can have a buyout. But because I just, got promoted to a different job, earned more money, I wasn't sure whether this was possible to do. And I did a part-time job with my best friend together, a German lady. So we did apply for it. And I just knew that this is my chance. I knew I will get the money, it will work out, and all will be fine. And one day before my birthday, I got the call of my line manager saying, you know what, your request has been granted and it's done. By the end of December of 2020, you can leave the company and have the buyout. And by that
Wow.
period, I already started the coaching study. So I did study on top of being a mother, um, still working and doing indeed my coaching certificate.
Kudos to you because like you have two children. It's
Thank
the
you.
pandemic,
Yeah.
okay? So that means they're at home.
Yes.
And then you're studying for another job and also working for that main job. That's so much things at once. Like, wow, you're a strong woman.
Thank you. It was hard, I have to say. I mean,
Yeah, I
kudos,
can.
kudos to all the mothers and fathers who survived that period, and also, homeschooling the children, because by then the school were open, but it was just crazy because my son didn't go for half a year. He had to go. He had to, get adjusted at school, and the baby was just a year old. I mean, it's been really hard, but on the other hand, I just knew this is what I want and I'm just going to make it work. And I think that's what's really important, to just go for it, because there is no perfect timing. And that's when I just thought, you know what, F it, I'm just going to do it. So I did certify then as a children's coach, did on top of that specialization as a women's coach as well, half a year. And that's basically when I became a coach. So I quit Shell, did still the second study on top of, being a mother and all. And July 2021 was the year that I, got certified in both studies and am now a coach.
You said you were working on your own healing.
Yes.
If it's not too personal, how did that look like? Like, did you went to therapy?
Um,
You said you booked a workshop. Like, was there still like so much unresolved stuff from the childhood that you felt like you have to heal from that first in order to help other people?
for sure. If you want to become a coach, you need to heal your own shit, basically. And yes, I mean, I knew the way that I was living didn't get me the results that I wanted. And that's, I think, something that we all need to realize, everything what you've done until up until now just brought you this far, but it won't get you to where you actually want to go, because of the paradigms, because of the limiting beliefs, because of all the traumas that you have been put through as a young child, but also in your youth. So I knew there was a lot of unresolved trauma on top of. I mean, I went to therapy, but back then was because my boyfriend committed suicide. And even though so many years passed by, 18 years almost, 17 years almost, I still knew that it was still inside of me, that it still kept me from certain things, but also the way I've been brought up, the way I saw myself, and what I thought was possible for me to achieve as an Assyrian woman. So I booked a coaching, which was online with a really huge workbook, and, having everyday sessions and really working on the way I've brought up, but also the way I see life, the way how my relationship are, how is my relationship to my partner, to my children, to my parents, to my friends, how do I see money? Money mindset was such a big thing. Self-love, how do I see myself, my self-worth? So it was really hard because a lot of things came to the surface that you just kept under. So while doing, these coachings, and the children's coach study was really every 2 weeks going to school, so it was a class settings where we worked on our inner child. So they were really heavy sessions, a lot of tears, a lot of traumas came up, which we resolved. So I knew that I have to go through my own traumas and my own healing before I'm even able to help others. So yeah, that was basically what happened while studying and learning the profession of becoming a coach, as well as healing my own self. Yeah.
So now that you became a coach, what exactly is your work about? Because somebody asked me, what is the difference between a therapist and a coach?
Yes. Well, the difference is basically, a therapist is allowed to work on things which I'm, as a coach, are not able to. So basically, I can work with you when you struggle with certain things, when you have traumatized, when you have, certain paradigms. I am able to help you until a certain point. But when it's really going into a stage where psychotherapy is needed, then this is basically the threshold for me to say, okay, you know what, this is really something I'm not able to help you with because I didn't study for that. And I'm not certified also as well to work on that. So I would say that a coach does cover a lot of trauma healing, body work, alignment work, inner healing. But when it really comes down to psychotherapy, or really issues also with mental health, the stronger form, then this is something a coach is not able to do. Then it's also our duty as a coach, because you're also doing an oath, that you really need to tell that person then to see a professional. That doesn't mean that a coach isn't professional, but because the job title coach is not secured title, basically, so everyone can call himself a coach, makes it a bit difficult. But a good coach knows where his boundaries are, and then gives the proper help to someone else who's more in a deeper mental health state. Also, the difference is that when you work with a or with a therapist, excuse me, at least for Europe, that's the way. I'm not sure how it works in the US or in other countries. It's also with your insurance, with your health insurance. It's covered by your health insurance, but working with a coach is not. So working with a coach is really something that you pay out of your own pocket. So you do hire a coach to help you. So yeah, these, I would say, are the two major things. And I think also there is a lot of need for help, for healing at the moment. And getting a spot at a psychologist in Europe, again, takes a lot of time. I know people who want to see a professional, but it takes up to 6 months or even a year to get a spot, because this sector is just so overwhelmed with all the people that need that healing. So the first step is for people also then to see a coach to help you immediately. And then if there is still unresolved traumas, unresolved issues, you can still approach that step to seeing a therapist, I would say. So these would be the three different things. And I know for a lot of people, it's easier to approach a coach than a therapist or a psychologist because of that, shame and not being so common in the community, because I do see that a lot, that there's still this negativity around or shame around, looking for help and realizing that you have a problem. Yet it is a sign of strength, realizing that there are certain things you cannot work out on your own and getting the help you need to go where you want. So, yeah.
What stood out to me in your job description on your website was intercultural coach.
Yes.
And I mean, I know what intercultural means because I struggled with that too when I was searching for a therapist. And because I'm from that culture, and you have, like, for example, a German therapist, you have a gap. Like, there is some certain things that they just don't understand, and you have to, like, invest more time into, like, explaining it. For example, my therapist always says, Jesse, why do you say we? You always say we need to do this, we need to do that. Who is we? I'm like, yeah, my people, bro. my community, my ancestors. So you have this specializations. Please explain to me, why did you decide to have that, and what made that, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, for me, because of that same reason, all the therapists or coaches that I had were Germans, Dutch, Americans, who didn't know or who don't know what it means to be a Syrian. I mean, being a foreigner is anyway already something different, but being a Syrian and, not having a country, that's of course something even more special. So no one really could understand what I was going through, what I was struggling with. A lot of therapists just told me, yeah, well, then just don't do these kind of things. And I was like, yeah, but it's not as black as white. So for me, it was really difficult to go through my own healing, but still have that part of, okay, but they don't really know what it means to be a Syrian, or, being raised by Middle Eastern parents. So in the beginning, I was just a women's coach. I did coach basically the women who wanted more out of life. But I realized my satisfaction wasn't in that group. And I remember that my coach back then was telling me, you need to focus on, your people. And I was like, yeah, well, I don't really know, and I'm not sure whether this is something they're waiting for. So I was somehow convincing myself this isn't needed, or who would do a coaching with me, etc., which was my own limiting belief. But I realized that this wasn't why I was here. And I took a social media break last year in December, just, throughout the holidays, social media break. And I did spend a lot of time with myself, a lot of meditating, a lot of journaling, and just really asking that question, like, what is my path? Why am I here? I knew I was on the right path, but it just didn't felt like, okay, this is it. This is my mission. I know what's expected of me. This is why I'm here. And in that 2 weeks and having a really special, they call it Akashic reading, helped me to realize what was there all the time, but I just didn't see it, that this is what my people need. And I realized that the struggles that I had through my own healing, by not being understood by all these therapists or coaches, the struggle that I had turned suddenly into my superpower. And I realized, okay, if I'm the one struggling, there must be many, many, many more women who go through the same struggles that I have. And that's when I decided to, say, okay, I'm going to be the first basically intercultural coach in the Assyrian community to offer that kind of help. And this is what I'm good at, because there is no better teacher than one of your own. I know how you feel, Jesse. I know how you think. I know the way you have been raised. I know the similarities. I know the challenges. So I realized that I'm the best person to help these women because I have been through that and that I have the tools to help them to get where they want to go. And that's really when I decided this is the group I want to work with, the niche. And that's when I realized this is it. And when everything basically fell into places. And I know this is my mission. I know that everything I've been through, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but what I've went through with my boyfriend who committed suicide, all the drama with my parents, moving out of the house as an unwed woman 12 years ago, that everything that I've went through, which was really hardship, prepared me for the work that I'm doing right now.
Do you have Syrian clients?
I do.
And what are the common struggles and needs that they're like communicating with you?
I think the common struggle is really finding your own way in who you want to be, juggling the expectations of family, culture, community, and your own dreams and wishes. There is also shame in wanting more out of life and not, continuing maybe the hardship that our parents went through. There's also a lot of low self-esteem, low self-worth, because a lot of us didn't really learn that, how to really stand up for ourselves, but also a lot of traumas, which of course also has been passed down from our ancestors. So it's really also about ancestral healing, lots of mental health, anxiety. So there are really different things, but at the end, it all comes down to whether we give ourselves the permission to go for that life that we desire so much. And that, of course, is connected to everything, the way you have been raised, ancestral healing, the way you see yourself, self-worth, self-love. And of course, a subject that no one really talks about is, of course, sexuality. I mean, we've been raised, and I think in Europe it's a bit more strict, I would assume, to really save yourself until you get married. But I mean, sexuality is so much more than just being sexual active. It's claiming also your sensuality, but also realizing what your body is like, what you have. And I mean, we as a woman, we bring life to the world. We have a portal between our legs. And it's also that body loving, because a lot of us, and that's something that I struggled with a lot, was really accepting my body for who it is and seeing it more than just a tool which carries me through life. And that is, of course, also part of healing, that, loving your body and loving yourself. And yeah, of course, this whole sexuality part is also a struggle in our community, which I really think need to shift, because right now it's seen like a woman who is sexually active is, just called bad names. But when we really think about sexuality, it's the most spiritual thing that you have and that you can do. And being sexual active is more than just, having sex with someone. It's really becoming one with the soul, but also recognizing who you are as a soul being. And yeah, I think the time is a bit short to really go into that part, but yeah, it is also a big part that we don't talk about. I mean, I know that for women there is also this wish for women who are not married or who don't have a partner, who would like to become a mother and who consider, to but going to a sperm bank, that's what I wanted to say, and still being able to raise a child, which is, of course, the biggest taboo ever. I mean, in our culture, the constellation is you get married, you make children, and that's it. But a single woman is not allowed, or, it's just the biggest shameful thing to do, to say, well, regardless whether I have a partner or not, I still want to become a mother. So these are also topics that I occasionally get from women who really struggle and want that, but don't pursue that wish because of the family, the community, and these kind of things. So yeah, these are also two subjects which we talk about a lot. Yeah.
Can you walk me through what you're doing with these women, like to understand a little bit? Like, are they sitting in a room and you're talking to them?
Well, it's of course very individual to the person. What is it that you want? And I mean, the first session is always about first we get on a quick call to see whether we are a match. When we're a match, then we continue in approximately 10 sessions, which is really my longest, but also really in-depth going coaching. The first session is always, okay, where do you stand right now? What are your struggles? And then we go through, okay, where do you want to go? What is it that you desire? We make a plan on how to get there, and then it's really the in-depth. We start with a family constellation, because everything that you're struggling right now, what's keeping you from doing, getting that job, quitting that job, traveling the world, whatever it is that you want and not doing right now, is something that happened when you were as a child. Either, you were actively in a situation where you picked up certain things, or you were a witness. So we start with the family constellation. So, okay, what is the dynamic in your family? We talk about your body. So it's also body work. We do ancestral healing. The sessions are all online. I always recommend to do that either in your bed, or, just make yourself comfortable, because it's something you open up yourself, and I want you to feel safe. And that's, for me, when you're either in your living room when you're on your own, or in your own sleeping room, just really being with your own thought, and just making it really comfortable for you to sit there and talk about. And then there are, of course, different stages where we talk about, like CEO of your life. What do you want your life to look like? When you look back, we do write letters to our future self, but also to our past self. We do inner child healing. So basically really going through certain areas, depending on, of course, where your struggle is, and stuff like that. So that's basically how a session looks like, or the sessions. And then approximately 10 sessions is the coaching that I do, because that's really a deep coaching, where we go into depth and the traumas and the paradigms, and where ancestral healing is also a part. Meditation is also a big part of that as well. Breath work. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Do you offer that online, or do you also visit people?
At this moment, all my clients are not located in the Netherlands, which means I do it online. But when there are clients here in the neighborhood, or even in Rotterdam South, then either I invite them to my house, or I do get an office where I can do certain sessions. But for now, everything is online, where there's no travel needed, etc., etc. For the ones located in the neighborhood in Rotterdam, I will leave it up to them whether they want to do it face to face or online, which of course gives also a lot of flexibility, obviously, because there's no travel involved, and you're in your safe harbor, which a lot of clients of mine really appreciate, to be in their own home when going through, all that coaching. And because a lot is happening in a coaching session itself, but also afterwards, because things will be set in motion. And so yeah, that's what most of them actually prefer, to really be in their own environment where they feel safe.
Beautiful. I want to touch on one thing that you said, the ancestral trauma, which
Yeah.
question is the same as generational trauma, correct? Kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm always wondering what needs to happen to have a new generation of, Assyrian women and men that is less struggling with that, like less struggling with generational trauma and the pressure of the society without losing ties to their identity. There are days where, for example, I wake up and say, oh, damn, I just want to wake up one day and not be a Syrian, not to have
Mm.
all that baggage on my shoulders and the
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities. And there are other people that are not inside of my culture that always say, well, it's not a burden that you had to take, or nobody forced you to do it, but it's not that easy. And of course, I don't want my children to go through the same things. Like, I don't
Mm.
want this thing to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? How can we break the circle but not lose all the other stuff, the good stuff?
I think the easiest answer is everyone needs a healing! Exclamation mark.
Okay.
Because, and I will say why. We all have been traumatized, no matter what we think, but subconsciously, a lot is going on that many of us maybe don't realize at the moment because we have been programmed to be how we are, that we don't even notice that because we just function as on autopilot. Ancestral healing means everything that happened 7 generations ago is still in your body because our cells save emotions. So everything that our ancestors have been through has been the emotion that trauma caused has been saved in our body, which then has been given from mother to mother to mother, same as for the father, obviously, has been passed down until to you. And there are a lot of clients of mine who say they are struggling with certain things that they cannot explain where it's coming from. And very often that's something that you've inherited because of, certain trauma your ancestors went through. And what I also tell my clients all the time is, when you choose yourself, when you choose your inner healing, it doesn't mean you forget who you are. It doesn't mean you're less Assyrian or not. But when you choose yourself, you make sure that you heal yourself, but you also heal your ancestors because they went through hardship. They went through so much, and you're here now to change it. But as you also said, more important is also that you break the cycle and also create a new path for the generation to come. Because what we've been through is something that you don't want to pass down to your children. And you can only do that when you realize that I need to work on myself. I need to heal what's keeping me from. And every one of us has a different imagination about how his life is wants to look like, his dreams and wishes. But you can only achieve that when you heal yourself from everything that has been passed down to you, which is not yours. What your friends also told you, a lot of the things that you're struggling with right now are not your reality. And if you think what I'm talking about, I'm going to explain it to you. You come to the world as a baby. You're just being born. You're this perfect, amazing, beautiful baby. And then you enter this world. You notice your family, your parents. And at a certain point, when you get a little bit older, you notice these are the things I'm allowed to do. These are the things I'm not allowed to do. And everything in life is repetition. When you tell a child 20 times to not touch that table, he will touch it, or she. But then it knows, okay, it's danger, I'm not going to do it. It's the repetition. If you tell a baby that something that you have in your hand, let's see, it's a vase. The vase is green, but if you tell the baby this vase is blue, that infant is gonna take that as his truth. So, because he has learned this, he has seen this, this creates his reality, which means the reality, your reality, all the norms and the thing that you believe are 90% the belief of others, the belief of your mother, of your father, of your grandparents when you grew up with your grandparents. So basically, the community. And nothing is really yours because you have adapted to the environment that you're in. You have adapted to the beliefs that you got. And that's why we struggle so much, because every one of us knows there are certain things that you don't do as an Assyrian. And I'm just going to take plain and simple. You're not married outside of your ethnicity or, being an Assyrian. This is something we all grow up with. And a lot of us don't do that. And I know women who let their love that they fell in love with, which was not an Assyrian man, let go because of that belief that they had to marry an Assyrian man in order to make their parents happy. So everything what you think right now is a reality that has been put upon you and which is not necessarily really your reality. And that's why I say we need to work on ourselves to let that part go of what we thought is our reality and really create our own. And yes, most probably you will find out that things that you have been told are not necessarily your truth, or you have a different view on points on certain things. And most probably you might be hurting your parents because you change maybe the way you live, maybe the way you see the world, the way you behave, or or religion, or I don't know what. There's so much more to discover, but then you are able to find the true you when you are the one who can decide what you want to believe in and what kind of life you want to create. That's what I see. And I mean, I knew I'm going to break that cycle because for my children, because I don't want them to have that same struggle. But I could only do that when I started with myself. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. While you were talking, I was trying to figure out a situation where you can apply this. I want to make one example, and I don't know if it's suitable, but it just came into my mind, okay?
Yes, tell me.
Seifo, the genocide of 1915. I think the common Assyrian grows up like this, that your parents or your community or your cultural club, whatever, they tell you you have to honor your ancestors. They died because of this and because of that, and you were not alive if this person did not survive, etc., etc. It's always very present while you're growing up, and you feel like you have to go to protest, you have to, fight for injustices, and it's just never letting go. And obviously because the world will never really grant us the justice. That's just how the world is, I guess. So I had a conversation with somebody that said, I forgave them and I'm letting this part go. Like, I'm not interested into it anymore. I'm letting this go. I cannot change what happened. And I don't want to constantly go back to this part of history. Which feels odd to me, because I'm like, well, then, they died for nothing, and how can you be so ungrateful, and how can you let this go? But like, by letting go, you're giving yourself more freedom, right? You're
Yes.
I would say it's healing. Sometimes healing feels a little bit like being a traitor, but yeah, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you
Okay,
understood what I'm trying
yes,
to
I
say.
do. And my question would be immediately, what makes you think that's odd that this person wants to let go of it? And who told you you're going to be a traitor? That's again something that you've been indoctrinated. Someone told you if you're not going to a protest, if you're not keep constantly talking about Saipho, what has been done to us, then you're a traitor. But why? Why is that? That's something that a person thinks that he's a traitor. But like that friend of yours, I would say the same thing. Your ancestors died. It's really cruel what happened to us. I think no one in this world can deny it. And yet, you are here. You made it here. Your ancestors died, but you're part of this, and you can change the course of it if you want. You don't need to suffer in order to keep, the Assyrians alive or make sure that, this will not be repeated. But I think if this is something that you want to do, you can do it, but from a place of healing. Because indeed, it happened 100 years ago. It's something that you cannot change. But we can make sure when we heal ourselves that we move forward in healing and with love. And I know a lot of people will think I'm crazy for saying this, but love is the answer. You cannot move forward when you're having a grudge against someone. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forgave the person for what he or she did to you. Forgiveness means you are letting go so it won't stay apart in your system. It's that poison you're ready to let go for your own healing, for your own best will. And that's, I think, something we need to learn. And I mean, as I said before, I grew up in a really strict Assyrian household. Saipho was all that's been talked about. It's such a bad thing. But because I'm not going to any protest, just as an example, it doesn't mean I don't care for my people or I don't care for what happened. I just know that by feeling a grudge and feeling hurt, there is no benefit. We can be a force when we let that part of our history be what it is, but move forward with love and as a united nation rather than one that is so, so deeply hurt. And again, we are hurt because of what happened to us, the pain that they have caused us. And yet, I believe that our generation is stronger when we go into that healing and unite and make this as a cause. And that's what I said also 2 days ago in my stories. When we go into healing, we can claim back what is ours, and that's really what I truly believe.
So, would you say we need to find a different way of honoring our past and our ancestors than compared to our parents and grandparents?
Yes, because we have the chance. Yes, we were born in the diaspora, so we kind of lost touch to, our motherland. That's true. But on the other hand, it's also a blessing because here we have the resources. We can do it differently. Our ancestors didn't have the chance to think about personal development, healing, or, achieving the life that you dream of. No, they had to play a role in that big community, and that was it. But you don't have to. You are free. You can choose. This will not stop with you, Jesse, and not with me if we're not going to change something, because this is something that we're going to pass down. And everyone who's listening, who has children, I'm sure you realize that the way that you've been brought up and certain things that you didn't like, what your parents did to you, is not something that you want to pass down to your own children. So it has to stop with us. And only when we can let it go in love let it go in love, honor it for what it is, we can make a bigger change.
Well, that was deep.
Yeah.
But that was a good conversation. I want to touch on one more topic, then I'm going to let you go. We talked a lot about improvement,
Hmm.
healing, etc.
Yeah.
So I read a little bit about this self-help trap and what it is about. It says, the idea of improving yourself, became really commercialized.
Hmm.
And this idea of I need to be fixed,
Hmm.
it's manifesting itself very deep, and especially like during the pandemic, I feel
Yeah.
like how can I be productive? How can I do this? Shit, I didn't do the yoga 10 minutes and I didn't do
Mm.
this. Da, da, da. Do you see a danger in that? And where should people draw the line between I'm healing
Hmm.
and then like I'm getting too much into the self-help and trying to optimize myself so much that I'm forgetting what this is really about.
Yeah, I think yes, it has been really being commercialized. This, I need to fix myself. First of all, I want to say there's nothing wrong with you because you're still this perfect human being as you came to that world, when you were born. A part of God is in us. We're part of this universe. We're part of God because that's why we that perfect person. We just have been taught to think differently about ourselves. And what I said before, that created your truth, which is not necessarily yours because you still can choose to believe in different things. Like most of us, you have to work really, really, really hard to, to be successful. That's also just a limiting belief. And I think to realize that you are already perfect, but you want to let go of what is keeping you to become that best version of you. And that might be just, feeling free from all that expectation or achieving that certain goal that you have. Um, but it's also enjoying the process because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, and you cannot be fixed because you're not broken. You just, I take it as an onion, you're like an onion. And with healing yourself, you're, removing every layer that is keeping you from being really who you are because we don't show ourselves for certain reasons. We can't be ourselves because of all the things that we believe and all the things that we have been taught. And I really see it as an onion. Every layer that you just, remove, you're gonna come to your source and be really who you want to be and feeling this love and this light inside of you. So I would say there is nothing wrong with you. You're not broken to be fixed. You just decide to create a life how you want it and still be who you are, but with your own, rules and with your own wishes and your own desires without someone telling you how you have to be. That's how I see healing. And meditation and yoga and breath work are just tools. They don't work for everyone, but these are things who have been around for many of thousands of years and they help you to center yourself. So healing is really about centering yourself, looking in the inside. Okay, who am I really? And I think that's what healing is about, and not necessarily about the feeling I need to become a better person. Yes, we do talk about the best version of yourself, but that is basically the purest version of you. So, who were you when you were born as a child? Because if I look at my children, they're 3 and 6, they think the world is full of chances. They don't think, oh yeah, I cannot become, my oldest son wants to be the director of the zoo here in Rotterdam. He thinks that's just possible. A grown-up person would think, yeah, well, that's really not possible. How can I do it? My son just told me he wants to buy a Ferrari when he's big. So they see the world in a totally different view. For them, everything is possible and everything can be achieved, and there's this easiness about life, and they don't get why we grown-ups are so complicated, because basically it's not. We just have been told that life has to be difficult, life has to be a struggle. And healing for me also meant less doing and more being out in nature, being with you, meditating, listening to your breath and just really connecting to yourself, because I really was disconnected from my body. And I mean, like I said, I saw it just as a engine machine that kept me alive, that brought me, going back and forth and giving birth to amazing children. But that's all I saw it. But now I know that my body is so much more than just a body. And when you're really in alignment with your soul and your heart and your brain, then this is when you really become the purest self. And I just remember listening to a podcast where someone said, now how we people function is, we let our brain lead us. We completely ignore our heart, but we do realize the feeling. But when you were in your mother's womb, the first thing that was ever there was this intuition, was your heart. So basically, your heart is the first thing that's there ever. Your heart has a desire which creates that feeling of, being loved, and this tingling that you want to achieve what it is you want to achieve. And then your brain has been developed. But for some reason, coming to this world, being a child, going to school, going to work, study, what? We learn to listen to our head instead of our heart, which was there in the first place and which knows you best. So healing means for me listening to your heart and doing what's in the best interest for you.
Babylonia, at the end of every interview, we usually ask the guest if there's anything that you want to say to our Assyrian listeners around the world. What would that be?
That's a really good one. And I think what just comes up is you're the best investment in this world. And deciding to heal will take you to places that you didn't even know exist before, because you will see so much beauty in life and so much beauty in yourself. And, when you heal, you give others the permission to heal as well. And in a society right now where healing is something we don't do, we just, are so busy with life and so stuck in our own routines that we really forget why we're here. You're here to make an impact. You're here to shape the world with your love and with your light. And I just wish for you that you find the courage to, get someone to help you work on yourself, to keep shedding that onion, to become this amazing person, because we have so much to give, especially as an Assyrian nation. There is so much for us to still do, and I really believe you can only do that when you're ready to let go of what's holding you back. And yeah, like I said, you're here to make an impact. You have a reason why you're here. So make it count and ask yourself, if I'm 80 years old, I'm sitting in a movie theater with my family and friends, and they made a film about my life. What do you want your grandchildren to see? Do you want them to see someone who just stuck up to the rules and just did what was expected of them, and led a life that was based on fear? Or do you want your grandchildren to tell you, what, grandma, granddad, what an amazing movie. You led a life so full of love, and um, did really an impact on this world. So that was always the question that I keep asking myself. What is it that I want to be remembered for when I'm not around anymore? And you're just such a special person. You're unique. There is no one like you. And I really hope that you find the courage to reveal that uniqueness that you carry in yourself. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed episode 177 with Babylonia. In order to keep our Assyrian podcast community growing, please consider sharing this episode out to 3 people in your life. Thanks again and see you next week.